Welcome to today's Crosspoint Devotion. I hope you're having a great week. Today I want to ask you, have you ever been duplicitous? Now that's a really big word, and for those of you who know me and who've listened to these devotionals in the past, you will know that I do not use big words because if I can't spell them, I typically don't use them, and my spelling vocabulary is very limited. So I did have to go to the dictionary and look up the word duplicitous to even figure out how it is spelled. But here's the general meaning of the word duplicitous. It means to have a mind about two things going on simultaneously. That means you're trying to think two thoughts at the same time. For example, you might have a deep conviction that there have been many American men and women who have sacrificed greatly and served in our U.S. military, and they have provided a way for us to go and vote in a national election every 4 years. So to honor them, you want to always go and vote. However, as you consider the upcoming election, maybe the candidates that are left are not people you would normally vote for. Maybe you feel like you're going to have to pick the lesser of two evils. So in your mind, you have a moment of duplicity. You're thinking about how I need to go vote and honor those who have fought for my freedom to vote, but the votes that I'm going to cast, I don't know that I really enjoy either candidate or any of the candidates that may be possible choices. And that's what it means to be duplicitous, wanting to vote but not liking the choices. Moses came to a place in his leadership where he was facing a duplicitous moment. Here's what was happening. The Hebrew people have escaped from Egyptian slavery, but they are now pinned in between the Red Sea and an approaching Egyptian army that is coming to take them back as slaves. As they are in that moment, it's Moses who's called on to provide leadership. And this is what the scripture says in Exodus 14, verse 13. But Moses said to the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm and see the Lord's salvation that He will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you must be quiet." Now that sounds good on the one hand. Moses is giving strong leadership. He's encouraging the people. You trust in God, you stand firm, and God's going to deliver us just like He did when we were Egyptian slaves and He sent the death angel. Our God is trustworthy and you can stand firm in Him. But if you keep reading, here's the other side of the coin. Here's the moment where the duplicity kicks in. It says in verse 15, the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to break camp." So between verse 14 and verse 15, in verse 14, Moses is communicating to the people, stand firm and trust God. But in verse 15, it says Moses is crying. He's whining. He's complaining to God. How are we going to get out of this mess? And God has to confront him in the moment and say, Moses, why are you crying? Do you see the duplicity? One moment Moses is telling people to trust God, and the next he's not even trusting God himself. You and I sometimes find ourselves in that same situation. Maybe you're a parent and your kid's going through a very difficult moment and you're telling them just trust God by faith. And yet in your own personal experience with the Lord, you've got doubts about something God's telling you to do. You see, this problem of duplicity in the faith is something we all struggle with. So what are we to do in those moments when we're caught in the middle? We want to trust God. We're telling other people to trust God, but we don't know if we really can on the other side. Well, listen to what God says in verse 16. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. As for me, I'm going to harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will receive glory by means of Pharaoh, all his army, and his chariots and horsemen. You know what God said to Moses in his duplicitous moment where he said in one moment, trust God, and the next he's crying to God. God said, Moses, I need you to get your eyes back on me and focus on the plan that I have. Lift up the rod over the sea. It will part. You can walk through, and I will destroy the Egyptian army. Moses, trust me because I'm always faithful. That's the message we need in the moments when we're facing duplicity. We need to trust God that He will be faithful. That's our problem. We want to tell people to trust God, but when we're in the moment and we have to trust God, we're the ones who get scared. And God says to us in those moments, He doesn't abandon us. He doesn't throw us to the side. He doesn't make fun of us. He just says, hey, trust me. I'm going to be faithful just like I have in the past. So if you're in that place today where you're struggling to trust God, let me remind you, He will be faithful. He will see you through. He will get you home. I hope that'll encourage you for today's devotion. Have a great day and come back and join us for the next Crosspoint Devotion.